It's just like we're playing running.
So now this is adjusted out perfectly just for
Yeah, let's see.
Mayor.
I'm coming to get you.
Tell Rick if the audio becomes an issue, let him know, and then I can encourage him to speak up.
I had to do the quick sticky pad all over myself.
your side is right.
I don't want to start prematurely. Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for candidates seeking city council seats in Ward 1, 3, 4, and 5 in Jefferson City on the April 2 ballot. I'm Gary Castor, editor of the News Tribune in Jefferson City, and I'll serve as moderator of tonight's forum. I want to take this opportunity to thank the city for the use of the council chambers for the forum, as well as their assistance in live streaming it. Some of our audience is here in the chambers with us, but some will also be watching at newstribune.com. So let me go through who the candidates are. So we have two candidates who are seeking the Ward 1 seat. They are Jack Deacon and Randy Hazelton. Two candidates are seeking the Ward 3 seat. They are Trika Young and Amy Bricks. We learned today that Amy is unable to attend tonight. Two candidates are seeking the Ward 4 seat. They are Randall Wright and Chris Leichel. Two candidates are seeking the Ward 5 seat. They are Mackenzie Job and Virginia Shetler. Prior to tonight, the candidates were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, then a round of questions would follow, and then closing statements. For each of these segments, they'll be given 1 minute to speak. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, News Tribune Community Engagement Editor. She'll serve as our timekeeper for their responses tonight. None of the questions have been shared in advance with the candidates. During the course of the forum, I may ask a candidate a follow-up question in hopes of getting a clear understanding of his or her stance. A candidate may also be granted time to respond or rebut an answer from a previous question. Before the candidates took the stage tonight, they drew numbers to determine the order of introductions and the answering of questions. We will then rotate the order by which candidates answered the questions. So in their opening statements, they've been encouraged to share who they are, why they're running for the post that they're seeking. So the first opening statement will begin tonight with Jack Deacon.
My name is Jack Deacon. I'm running for re-election to the first ward of Jefferson City, actually the nice ward, the nice end of Jefferson City. Those of you who don't have the privilege of living on the east end, I feel sorry for you. It's really laid back and comfortable. The reason I ran, I never had really a desire to run on council. Children are gone, I'm retired, and I have enough to do. But our roads are broken down, and it seemed like we had enough deferred maintenance for a number of years, and all of our major roads are in dire need. Grass is growing in the cracks. Stormwater inlets are occluded. We present as an actually ugly, broken down town on its heels, something like Cairo, Illinois down there. Beautiful buildings, but nothing going on. So I wanted to fix the streets. But I want to run for re-election. I think we've got some money. We're reallocated our priorities to fix our main streets, and hopefully now we're working really well with the county. They're going to help us with some stuff. We've got some good things going. We have some councilmen that are thinking alike that this is our job to fix our infrastructure before we fix anything else. Our streets have to be maintained, our sewers have to be maintained, and our stormwater inlets, and keep the grass out of the cracks. Thank you.
Randy?
My name is Randy Hazelton. After 18 years of serving in the Missouri National Guard, my career finally brought me here 3 years ago. Though I'm a recent Jefferson City resident, I am a lifetime Missourian. I draw from a wealth of experience from serving the communities of Arnold and Neosho. I also currently serve as the Executive Vice Commander of Post 5 and the past Commander of Post 163. Jefferson City has long been a symbol of Missouri in my lifetime as a Missourian, and I would be proud to serve Ward 1 as a councilman. My priorities are to bring down the cost of our government and bring my experiences from past communities to apply here and help it be easier to be a business owner and a homeowner in this community. And I look forward to serving you.
Sharika?
Good evening. My name is Trika Young, and I am running for Ward 3 City Council. I'm a candidate for the seat. I was not born in Jefferson City. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. However, I came to Jefferson City in 1986 to attend Lincoln University. Since that time, I've obtained my bachelor's degree in 1992, my master's in 1993, and another master's in 2003. My husband and I bought our house in Ward 3 in 2000. 3 years ago this month, we paid off that house in Ward 3. So we consider Jefferson City our home. We plan to be here for a while. We've raised our sons here. They're now 31 and 35 years old. And I am running because Jefferson City is my home. It's a great place. My husband says he knew within a month of being here that he would make Jefferson City his home. Took me a little bit longer, but I want to work on economic development. I want to work on infrastructure. I want to do public safety, and I want to protect our park amenities. And that's why I'm running for Jefferson City Council.
Yes.
Trika, that's twice now I get to follow you. It's beginning to be a trend here. But thanks, Gary and Tulane, for setting this up and allowing the candidates to come in and speak. Thanks for the public for being here. It's certainly important to have engagement. And I welcome that input. I encourage that input in our government. Certainly want more of that. And we want the best for Jefferson City. My name is Chris Leichel. So I moved here 34 years ago with my family. We certainly love Jeff City. All the family lives here. And we support things that I believe in are civility, professionalism, our infrastructure certainly, and public safety, no question that I support our men and women in uniform. And big part of what I do and believe in is economic growth because of being a former business owner and Allstate Insurance. I kind of understand a little bit of that side of it. So I certainly welcome the opportunity to serve Jefferson City. Thank you.
Randall?
My name is Randall Wright. I go by Randy. I was born and raised here in Jefferson City, a proud Jefferson Cityan, and went to Jefferson City Jays High School and to Mizzou for my undergraduate, and then Lincoln University for my master's degree. Jefferson City is my home and has been my entire life. My parents operated a small business named Wright Studio and Camera Shop for almost 50 years here in Jefferson City. I have my own small business. I'm a real estate broker, have my own brokerage, and also have my own rental property company as well. So I'm definitely pro-business and think we need to really follow the lead of Mayor Fitzwater and have Jefferson City open for business for sure. My priorities for being on the council, kind of how I got here, in a nutshell, was neighbors really coming together and saying, hey, Randy, we really need representation. So they urged me to put my name in the hat. I got elected by the council on May 15th to fill out Mayor Fitzwater's term. But we still have a lot of work left to do, and my goals are economic development, public safety, infrastructure, and certainly, the parks are an important part of Jefferson City as well. So I look forward to continuing to serve the citizens of Jefferson City.
Kenzie?
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Job. I'm running in Ward 5, which includes neighborhoods along Morrow Drive, Lincoln University, McKay Park, and Whitney Woods. I am born and raised in Jefferson City. After college, I chose to return here and dove headfirst into entrepreneurial endeavors. I own a daycare for dogs called Kitty's Critter Care that I started in 2015 with very few resources, and since then we have expanded to a 6,000 square foot facility that serves over 250 dogs every week. So I am committed to improving the quality of life for everyone living in Jefferson City, because I think that the best advocates for our town are happy residents. So encouraging meaningful economic growth so people can afford to live here, increasing attainable housing opportunities, encouraging lots of opportunities for parks and recreation, making sure that our neighborhoods are safe with police officers supporting the fire department, and everything else that makes life in Jefferson City great.
Virginia?
Good evening, I'm Virginia Shetler. I am also running for Ward 5. First time running for office in Jefferson City. I was born in Old St. Mary's, grew up in California, Missouri. I like to say Southern California when I'm being cheeky, right out near Burger Smokehouse. Spent my time there growing up in a small town. Both my folks had their own business. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a dentist, and that inspired me to kind of take that path. I got my degree from the University of Missouri. Knew before I was finished that I was probably not going to use that degree as a job or career path rather than a hobby, and actually joined the very first class at Metro Business College to do massage therapy. I've been doing massage therapy now for over 20 years. I've maintained a clientele on and off, and here in Jefferson City. Came back to Jefferson City after doing some insurance work in both Missouri and Illinois. And my husband and I made our home here in 2016. I love Jeff City. I think it's the biggest small town you'll ever be a part of. I just want it to be cleaner, safer, and more prosperous.
All right, council, let's jump into the questions. We're going to start with Randy for the first question. Do you believe residents are satisfied with how the council is currently governing? Explain your answer.
I believe that residents could be happier with the way the council is governing. We've had some recent incidents with the closed session and yard waste and several other examples that say that there could be a better job of managing content, if you will. A lot of residents feel that they have not been responded to responded to as far as their issues whenever they call up to City Hall. I don't know if that's so much a reflection of council or staff, but out on the voter trail, I've talked to almost 300 houses. A lot of folks say that they feel disregarded by city council whenever they voice their issues.
Tarika, same question.
Good question. Do residents feel that the city council is running well? So before I started this particular campaign time, I did telephone polling because I wanted to know if you had your view of city council, what would it look like? I found out that they were not pleased. One of the things they're concerned with mostly is the fact that the meetings are starting to be closed meetings, that they are not involved and they are not able to share their views. They feel like it is running in a way that they are told what's gonna happen in this city and that they do not have input. They're concerned about that, and they're concerned about lack of representation as well. So they're looking for transparency, they're looking for civility, and they're looking for a possible landing page to be put in place so that they can have a chance to voice their concerns and have conversations about the way things are ran. So no, they're not pleased.
Chris?
So fundamentally, I believe in other people for the people. And when you serve others, you certainly don't try to make decisions that affect them in a vacuum. I think to use the most recent example is yard waste. And first of all, why would you go to closed session to do that? It doesn't need that. It doesn't precipitate that. And frankly, that should be something where our citizens should come to be able to offer their opinion. The reason that it was returned to some degree of yard waste site last night was because of the people. Duh. We should have asked. We should have inquired. We should have studied that. We should have evaluated that long before it was ever shut off. So fundamentally, that wouldn't be the way that I would support going forward.
Randy?
I think that there's, definitely if you're going to continue the vein of the yard waste, I agree with what Mr. Leichel said. You don't make these decisions in a vacuum. I'm very cognizant of what my constituents are asking for. They have let me know resoundingly that, they wanted a yard waste site. So could we have done things differently and done things better and with more transparency? Yes. I think that there were several fumbles along the way with the whole yard waste decision. So wish we could roll the clock back and do it differently. But I will roll the clock back all the way back to when we did the first decision last fall with Mr. Cordy. I listened, like many other council members, to all the calls not to approve that. And that's what we did. We did not approve it because the citizens told us they did not want to drive across the river to do their yard waste. So problem with that is we needed to analyze where we go from there when we make that decision.
Mackenzie?
So based on my conversations with voters, I think people want, council meetings can be pretty dry, so they expect their representation to communicate back to them what's happening before it happens and to involve them in the decision-making process. So now what I'm hearing a lot of is, well, they did this stuff behind closed doors, we couldn't participate, and now we are having to scramble to find other solutions, and then it seemed that the council changed their mind pretty quickly after hearing the public input. So I think that they would like more clear instruction on what is happening and making sure that they're involved before decisions are made, and making sure that people feel heard and invited to participate in the meetings, making it easier and, well, it's not necessarily hard now, but simplifying the process for signing up to speak and making people feel welcome and that they know what's happening. Thank you.
Virginia?
I thought it was kind of interesting, particularly last night at the council meeting. Someone came in just after the meeting had started, which is of course after you're supposed to be able to sign up to give public input. And they raised their hand when they had a question, and the council listened. They talked through to make sure that everybody was okay with that change in rules, and allowed the man to speak and present his case. And so I think one of the things that we all need to remember is I didn't know how you signed up to speak at a council meeting until I came to my first council meeting and found out there was a sign-up sheet. Maybe that should be a little bit more advertised and, more open to the public, or at least that process made a little bit more clear that it needs to happen before the meeting starts. But again, given the opportunity, they certainly heard a concern last night.
Jack?
Well, about the openness, my personal phone number is out there. I answer my phone. It doesn't go to voicemail unless I can't find it. We advertise our council meetings. We advertise our agenda. It's online, in person. We'll have 3 people, 4 people show up. We can't make them come in. It's not a conscription where we have to come in. Closed session, the only time it's been an issue was this last time, and we probably had poor advice, but we had to go in closed session to discuss those contracts. You don't do that open because that's just not the way business works. And we'd had so much pushback by the different ways we wanted, the yard waste. So let's just put a halt. And we didn't want to run it ourselves because, well, look at the mess. We can't run our yard waste. We don't have business running anything. And so we're just going to let it open for the people. But I didn't get that many calls. If they're complaining about open government, that they're not calling us. And it all starts right here at open. I remember Bus Wall, his widow just died. Okay, can we shut up? Did I get the signal?
Yeah.
We're going to go into a little bit more details to that question. I'll give you an opportunity, okay? Second question, we'll start with Tarika. So beyond posting meeting announcements on the city's website, how would you encourage more citizen participation at council meetings? If it's a citizen-run government, and there are times where the chambers are sparse, how would you as a council member encourage and advocate for more citizen input?
Good question. I think the breakdown, from what I'm hearing from citizens, I'm knocking on doors, I'm talking to people because I really want to hear why aren't they showing up for these meetings? He's right, the agendas are posted, but people have to feel engaged. They have to feel like when I voice my opinion, it's going to be valued. And those kind of things, there's no history of that's happening. And that's where the breakdown is. So, yeah, you can have these agendas. I've sat on plenty of boards. I've ran plenty of meetings. An agenda is a set thing that happens. But we have to make people feel valued, engaged, and listened to, and that their opinion matters. And as I said, I would ask them to have a landing page. People can probably earn that trust between city council and residents by how those opinions and voices are responded to on that landing page. That'd be a good place to start.
All right, Chris?
So I think you have to make folks understand that they're part of the process, and doing that by welcoming them, encouraging them to participate. But most importantly, if someone shows up here to present to the council their view or their ideology, wouldn't it make sense to listen to them and hear them? You may not totally agree with them, but you certainly wouldn't attack them, certainly wouldn't try to bully them. I can assure you that I will never do that, and I will always ask. And in fact, if elected, we're going to have a ward hall. And we're going to have it to where folks can come sit down and drink a cup of coffee or iced tea or whatever, and talk to me personally, in person. I prefer that dialogue much better. And that that to me is how you hear from constituents that really care and want to invest in their city. And that's what I'll stand for, what I'll do.
Randy?
I will continue to, listen to my citizens that, have contacted me directly. This last go-around with the yard waste, I pushed out to all the people that have reached out to me and said, we've got that on the agenda for Monday night. Please come to the meeting. Encouraging citizens to participate and come to the meeting. Did have, one or two that said positively they would come to the meeting, and they did. So in addition to that, I want to use tools such as social media, to keep the residents informed, and just do everything I can to push that message out there. But I think certainly as far as the city aspect, I think there's definitely room for improvement on the city's website. I agree with that. I don't find the city's website to be particularly user-friendly, so I think that that would be helpful to improve the transparency of the city.
All right. Mackenzie?
The council meeting agendas can be a little confusing if you're not extremely aware of what the issues are. So I think having a voice, a representative for the people to break down what each line item of that agenda means, that's helpful, because you can read the vague statement that's in the agenda and not really understand what's happening or how that might affect you. So I think having a representative who can communicate that, and not only encouraging people to come to the meetings, but to act as their representative, because I don't think that they have to come to every meeting. I can listen to what they say and bring their concerns forward as their representative.
All right. Virginia?
I wish I could remember the number, but I know that there was a study, many years ago, and it was, would you rather speak in public or be caught on fire while living? And people said they would rather catch on fire while living than speak in public. And that's never been an issue for me. It doesn't faze me to speak in public. And I think it's something that is very helpful if you're hoping to represent folks, is that they know that they can come to you and talk to you, you'll listen to what they have to say, and that you'll be a voice for them. I've always tried to be a voice for either the actual voiceless or those who feel like they're voiceless. It's been a large part of my life. And while I think it's good to encourage folks to come, my guess is most of them will not want to come and speak in front of a group of people. And I know it can be very daunting. So I think encouraging them to reach out to us directly to be their representatives, that's what we're supposed to be as a council representative.
Okay. Jack?
I take issue that this is a non-welcoming body, at least with Mayor Fitzwater. We've had some really upset people, and a couple of them were a little bit off, and really, I kind of went back there. We've got a steel plate there. I didn't know if he was going to come at us or not, but it was held perfectly, calmly, and professionally. Yeah, we'll welcome anyone that wants to speak, even when they get a little bit out of order. He'll let them go, and then we've got good security. I mean, the police did kind of move around a little bit with that guy. He showed up a couple times. But if you have a complaint, you have a concern, call us. Our phone numbers are out, at least mine in the 2nd Ward. Come up to my house, bang on my door. I've lived there 30 some odd years in that ward. And we're an open book. Now the website, I agree, that thing's occluded. It's a horror story.
Randy?
I think that as my opponent said here, Mr. Deacon, I believe that we could make the website a simpler format, so that way it's easier for citizens to access what is in the council packets, what is on the agenda, and also what services are available to them. I think by and large, whenever it comes to city government, it is just confusing for the average person, just because they have lives to live, they have other things to do. That's why they send us up here. And if citizens are coming up here, it's because we are close to, or we have gotten close to breaching our trust with them and what they expected us to do. It's almost like the pastor's checking to make sure the pilot's flying the plane all right. We're breaching the trust of the citizens if they have to come up here. Otherwise, they go about their lives.
All right. All right, let's go to our next question. Chris, we'll start with you. A number of council members have said they were not obligated to honor past promises the city made to voters and voted to remove funding for the widening of Monroe Street as an example in 2023. If elected, what importance would you place on voters' decisions made in past elections regarding sales tax approvals and deciding on how funding appropriations should be made?
So you have to follow some degree of precedent, and you have to respect previous councils and the decisions that were made at that time. It's also important for the council in the current situations because things change. Certainly, opportunities change, circumstances change. But I think you really have to take a hard look and not disrespect any previous councils and the decisions that they made. Because quite frankly, someone could criticize your sitting council down the road. And to me, that's not productive. You have to evaluate it. You have to believe in your heart and your gut what you're doing is right for the citizens. But you certainly got to consider the road that was traveled before you and how people got there and why they got there. And then ultimately you try to evaluate the decision that was made and do your best to respect that and try to honor that if you can.
Okay. Randy?
I believe, I would agree with Chris. You should take it into consideration, certainly. And, look, that was a decision made at that time and at that moment in time. And look at all the factors that went into that. Take it into consideration when you're making your decision, but not necessarily be completely bound by, something that happened, a number of years ago at a previous council. So the other thing that it needs to be said is, if there's voter input specifically, meaning if it was advertised, that kind of thing, you should definitely take that into consideration as well. But I don't think each individual council should be completely, locked in. They need the flexibility to make the right decision at that moment when it's time to make that decision.
Okay. Mackenzie?
Legally, the councils are not required to uphold those. However, anytime that the public comes to the polls and approves something, that is the public placing their trust in the governing body to execute on the promises made to the community. So if another council comes forward and says, well, we weren't on that council whenever that happened, so despite that being the promise made to the community, we're not going to do that. And when you do that, you begin to erode the public trust in our local government, and it makes people not feel welcome. It feels like their voice is not heard. They're not feeling respected. And ultimately, we are the stewards of their tax dollars. So if they're telling us overwhelmingly how they would like their money to be spent, I will listen to that.
Okay. Virginia?
I agree with Mackenzie. I think stewarding of tax dollars is one of the things that is of the utmost importance of the council. In fact, I think it's one of the primary things that the council is actually charged to do. And I think one of the things all of us have seen in the last couple of years is that even when something was priced one way at one point, even in presentation for a ballot initiative or a petition, it might not look that way when the time comes for that to actually take place, and maybe adjustments have to be made. And I think it's imperative that the council always look at what is the best stewardship of taxpayer dollars and making sure that no matter what we do, even if it goes against something that was initially approved, that we're looking at the best way to spend those dollars.
Okay. Jack?
First of all, that was never on the ballot language. It was never, ever on any ballot language ever. It was a list of a number of projects we would like to do. This was sales tax H. And that was a project that was not necessary, and I'll take credit for leading the charge. I'll die on it. We did not need to displace, 7 to 10, I don't know how many homeowners, how many millions of dollars just to widen the street for no purpose whatsoever. And now we're even gonna take out the stop sign up there because the street isn't traveled. It was an absolute waste of money. It was something that was tacked on there a number of years ago to, a big business up there would like to have had it. That's all changed. If they want to fix it, use their own money. I just could not in good conscience displace all those landowners, spend all that money for nothing. What we said, we're going to fix the other street, which is necessary, Madison Street. We're going to cooperate with the county to fix Madison, which is in really dire need. Thank you.
Randy?
I believe that the deficit of trust between the public and government is wider in all levels than it has ever been. And whenever we ask the taxpayer, may we have funds for a certain project, then we turn around and change our mind, we widen that deficit of trust. If we were to correct that situation, we should have gone back and said, the plans are changed, the situation is different, this is our case. May we use this fund for a different purpose? And it goes back to the ballot.
Okay. Tarika?
The foundation of any relationship is trust. Now, if I vote this year on something, I'm trusting that you're going to value my opinion and my vote. And 3 years from now, you find out what I voted yes for and I approve for has changed. Times change. If you look at 2020 and 2024, COVID made some drastic changes for all communities and all economic money. So I believe that if something should change, that you're obligated to lay out to the public why you're changing your decision and just put the facts out there. Most times people will follow. It's the transparency or lack of transparency that they really have a problem with. It's not really the fact that you didn't go with what they initially voted on. So trust is a must.
All right, let's go to our next question. Randy, we'll start with you. Should the council have appropriation authority over the Parks and Recreation tax funds? And do you think the city charter needs to be changed to limit the authority, autonomy, and independence of the Parks and Recreation Commission?
I think that we need to listen to our citizens. If we have a grassroots effort and there's a citizen effort to want to change the charter for whatever reason, I think it's got to come from the grassroots and come from the citizens. I think that, the charter was almost 40 years ago that we've done. We've amended it a number of times, but I don't see the necessity in changing the way we're doing things right now, unless and until the citizens feel like we need to make a change to the charter.
Okay, Kinsey?
The citizens that I've spoken to overwhelmingly say that they do not feel that the park system is broken and does not need to be changed. Having the Parks Commission comprised of volunteers who are passionate about all different aspects of recreational activities gives appropriate allocation of parks funds to make sure that it's improving our parks and recreation and that those funds that are supposed to be for parks are not reallocated elsewhere based on priorities of other bodies. So I support leaving the system the way that it is. We have a lot of things to be proud of with our parks and recreation over the last decade or so. Lots of renovations, lots of amenities that have come because of the passionate volunteers who made it happen.
All right, Virginia?
So what I would like to see is the appropriation of funds be about what the major needs of the city are. So I don't think the city needs to be messing around in the funds that are specifically designated for parks, like its own quarter-cent sales tax, or excuse me, half-cent sales tax revenue. Those funds are the parks. The folks voted for that, and those should be used by the parks. But city funds, part of the general revenue, if it needs to be used elsewhere, the parks have their own funds. The city needs to allocate and best use funds where the city needs to. I would say if the street traveling to the park is full of potholes and you can't get there safely because you don't feel safe being there because there's not a police presence, all of those sorts of things, I think the city has to allocate funds the way that they need to make the citizens the most safe.
Okay. Jack?
This, as Randy said, the citizens, this is in the charter, we don't have control of that. I mean, we're at the mercy of the mayor picking good candidates to oversee the money. I mean, there's millions and millions of dollars they deal with and big contracts. There's a lot of stuff. So, if the citizens want to change it, that's up to them. The biggest complaint is that there's no representation, no voter representation. It's strictly appointed by the mayor and okayed by the council. But they go back to something before about the trust on this thing in Monroe. We had multiple hearings. The public was invited. We had people testify. We were wide open. We don't hide anything in this council. If people think they're hiding, then they've got their own hiding agenda or they're just not paying attention. This is in the newspaper. This is a big deal. They tried to slant it that we voted for it. We did not vote for it. It just said extend sales tax H. There's a bunch of projects we dropped over the years. I just take issue that we've been sneaky. Thank you.
Randy?
Again, with my last answer, if there is a reason to change what has been entrusted to and agreed to between the city and the public, as far as the way that we're managing our parks and their funds, then we need to make our case and take it to the ballot. If others feel that our case is sufficient and that a change is needed, they'll approve it. If not, they won't. It's that simple. Those are the rules that were made and agreed on.
Trika?
As everyone has said, the charter was voted on by the people. The people are the one who makes the decision on how the city council runs. It's not the city council make the decision for the people. We are supposed to be their representation. And so with that being said, again, if something has changed, that charter was voted on almost 40 years ago. If something has changed, reveal it, show it, put it out there. Give people a chance to voice their opinion. The people will tell you what they want to do with it. If they're for it, they'll vote for it. If they're against it, they'll vote against it. Simple as that. Should not be a decision primarily from the city council.
Chris?
I've had the distinct pleasure of serving in the Parks Commission for 7 years and as its president currently in the last 5 years, and experienced a lot of growth and investment in our community through our parks. And the bond that we took out 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, for $6.5 million, built Community Park, built the amphitheater, and remodeled McClung. 3 major projects that we've delivered on. I don't believe the charter should be changed. I think there's plenty of control measures within and an opportunity for folks to evaluate. We go through an audit, outside audit every year, and it's quite effective because it's citizen ran, a lot of citizen input, and that's where we get our direction from, and our staff and commission do a really good job of delivering for our citizens.
All right, let's go to our next question. We'll start with Mackenzie. The council recently voted in closed session to discontinue a yard waste service that has existed for nearly 15 years. Do you think the discussion and vote should have been held in a closed session? Explain your answer.
I do not think that that particular vote to discontinue should have been in closed session because it did not pertain directly to negotiating the contract. So it could have been in closed session if they were discussing the contract, but they were discussing discontinuing the service. So the council did elect to make their vote public, which was good, so that the citizens could understand their reasoning and speak to their council people to voice their opinions as the public. And that seemed to have an effect because now the yard waste site is coming back and it seems to be within a budget that the current council is okay with and that the citizens are satisfied with for the most part. But I think we can continue to work the problem until we find a solution that works the best for everyone.
Virginia?
So again, I think my understanding is when it comes to contracts would be discussed in closed session simply because that's not supposed to be necessarily for public consumption. But the vote to discontinue or how the discussion ultimately ended up with the discontinuation of the service versus do we accept this contract or not, that certainly seems like what the overwhelming outcry has been about. Why did the discussion end up going in that direction, and why was that during closed session? And so, again, I think it's the quickest turnaround, and certainly the immediate listening to the citizens by the council. A decision was made in closed session. That decision was unpopular, and they felt unheard and unrepresented. And so immediately it got turned around. I'm grateful for that.
Jack?
We just go on, I guess we went on poor advice. There's so much discussion. I didn't even think about it. And I'll that's my fault. But I'm not, no, I didn't. It was just one of those things, and it happened. But coming out of that, I didn't think we were ever going to truly disband. We're done with just, no one was happy. Public wasn't happy, we weren't happy, vendors weren't happy. It was getting to be pretty emotional. And yeah, hindsight is good. Poor advice, I guess.
Okay. Randy?
I'll give you the quickest answer of the night. No. Should not have been done in closed session.
Tarika?
So, no, it should not have been closed. Because if the contract was there, then that's reason that to do it in a closed session, as has already been mentioned. The contract was not on the table that night. You say you have these preset agendas. It clearly would have told you whether or not a contract was there or we're going to discuss services. The minute that the council realized that they were discussing services, that's when you need the citizens' input. So no. It should have never have been a closed session. Yeah, it was restored in about 12 hours, but those were 12 hours we lost. We should have never had to regain those hours. We would never regain those hours in trying to restore that services. What they did, they restored the services because they heard from the citizens. Let's try to do that first, not do it second.
Chris?
So this is kind of the vacuum that I was referring to earlier. My opponent voted for the yard waste to go away. I would never have done that because think about the impact of yard waste, not from just a holistic view. When you look at what happens to the material, are you going to burn it? We have a short burn period. You're going to burn it all spring, all summer. What risk does that bring? What about our stormwater? Where's all that waste going to go? People are going to dump it at vacant lots all over. You may not see it immediately for the first year, but it's going to be a compounding effect. I think it was short-sighted. I think it was poorly executed through the process. And it again left the citizens out of a need that we have and the city needs, frankly. We don't want our streets dirtied and messed up and our stormwater backed up as a result of a decision. We all serve in that area. We should have not ever gone down this road.
Randy?
Well, just to set the record straight, we did go into closed session because there was, a contract being presented to us, okay? And, after going over the contract with staff and it being presented to us, and then also having an ad hoc presentation from Public Services, that's when we made the decision, no, neither one of these are acceptable because it's too expensive. And so we do have to be stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And, could it have been handled differently at that point? We had to then, realize that, hey, what we're doing here, we need to open that up. So, we got a resounding, I believe, unanimous vote to open the record. So, We did go into closed session to, handle the contract, the RFP that had been submitted by staff and to go over that. So that was the purpose for going there. And, could it have been handled differently? Yes, certainly. But I mean, that was the purpose and that was the reason why we were there.
Okay. Let's go to our next question. Sheila, we'll start with Sheila. We don't have a Sheila up there.
That's a first for me.
I know.
I mean, I get Victoria, I get all sorts of stuff, but never a Sheila.
Well, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I think I'll call you Virginia. All right, so Virginia, we're going to talk about transit. Should public transit be expanded, kept at its current level, or reduced, and why?
So I'd only recommend expanding public transit if we're having a need for it. I know Jeff Tran will come directly to address if called upon. And so I think that expands all public transit really to at your doorstep. So beyond that, I mean, I hate to say it, but I see an awful lot of empty buses driving around Jefferson City, and not all the time, but a lot of the time. So I think if we were going to expand routes, a certain need would definitely have to be shown. It wasn't being met by other services like Jeff Tran.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, the present system isn't working as well as we like it. Well, the way the city's set up, a lot of different ways. But we're in discussion now to change the system, maybe going to maybe an on-demand, kind of like Uber, or there's a number of companies, fixed routes and also an on-demand. We're very much aware that it has to be changed, and something's going to happen. We have a very active council that we just don't think about. They're really pursuing options, and it's going to be fixed. Probably not as well as we'd like to, but the way the topography is, it's never going to be perfect.
Randy?
As Virginia said, there's a lot of empty buses running around there. We do need to change the way that we're set up, if not have a smaller vehicles, something that's a little bit more maneuverable around the city. I like this idea of kind of on-demand transit system. So change, if not reduction, of the way we're doing things is definitely called for. 2 or 3 people running around on a bus, all I see at that point is dollars flying out of the tailpipe.
Rika?
With the transit system, there's definitely a need for a transit system here. The problem in what needs to be changed is not only the hours. The people who need it the most and the communities that need it the most, those buses does not go into those communities. So the routes need to be reviewed and changed to meet the needs of those people. Those are the people who more likely work those jobs that expand after 6 o'clock. So I would like to see the hours of the routes change. Yes, they are 2 or 3 people on the bus because the people who need it the most don't feel like it accommodates their needs. And yes, it would help if we had some larger buses. There's a time and place for larger buses. But if we could get smaller buses, that I was thinking about like Oaks, or even something even smaller. There's alternatives to going into those communities, getting those people and letting them know that they will have a way home from work if they work to 10 o'clock at night. So the hours and the routes need to be reviewed and revisited.
Okay. Chris?
I think the numbers should drive the train, to be honest, in this case, the bus. I think you really got to dig into the numbers and where they lead you in relation to how many, how large, and where you go. There's no question that any segment of your population of this size or larger is going to need and rely on public transportation to some degree. You can't just exit out. For example, as yard waste is certainly a hot topic tonight, as it should be, because I think it shows a bigger scope of what to consider. But that one shouldn't be used in a vacuum either. That one should be a lot of public input, getting the input and the numbers of who's riding, or not necessarily who, but how many are riding the buses and which routes are most effective versus least effective. The numbers should certainly dictate on what, when, and how much we have of public transportation.
Randy?
I agree that definitely the transit system needs to be looked at completely, from A to Z. And, back when we had the discussion about the bird scooters, I'm certainly in favor of keeping them as, one alternative means of transportation, since we heard from people that were actually, using a bird scooter to go to work or come home from work. So I agree, and I'm glad that we're exploring those options of micro-transit. It's an Uber-like, service. I think that would give greater ability for the communities around the city to access those transit services. I think stopping, our main transit services at 6 p.m., doesn't serve the citizens the way we should be today.
Okay. Mackenzie?
So I have an interesting perspective because I have a bus stop in the front yard of my business, and I have spoken to bus riders, and I have spoken to the director of transit. And in learning about the issues that they face, transit is difficult because it is a public service. It's something that can cost money. However, it is extremely beneficial, especially to our elderly population, people who are medically not able to drive, people who cannot afford a car. And so if we want to empower people to get where they're going and encourage people to have jobs and be involved in our community, we have to have transit to connect people. And by exploring what options are available for transit is certainly a problem that we have to continue to work because it is very complex, and we have the large buses because we have to accommodate the maximum number of people who may be on there at any given time, which sometimes is much more than what a small van could hold.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can squeeze in one more question before a closing statement. So we'll start with Jack. How would you assess the city's efforts to target dilapidated buildings? And is there anything the council can do to help alleviate Jefferson City's housing shortage?
The housing shortage, yeah. Decreased interest rates and also inflationary prices on materials. We're stuck. I mean, you can't build a new house unless we have a benefactor out there who wants to throw some money and people can live for free. With our dilapidated buildings, that's a big problem. I'm thoroughly frustrated with it. Like I said before, we're starting to look like Cairo, Illinois down there. But once we take over them, then it costs money to either demolish them or rehab them. And the city's broke. We don't have the money. The citizens, for whatever reason, have decided we don't need a use tax on the internet sales. And so not only do our merchants suffer because of the click of the fingers, you can buy stuff, they're not paying, the other vendors aren't paying the taxes on it. So we're in a bind. All right. Thank you.
Randy?
So the housing shortage in this town is in part from what I've been talking to other voters, because whenever you buy houses in this town, there's a process, the permitting process, and if you're in a historic overlay, it gets even more complex. Dilapidated houses, a related problem. The bureaucracy, the red tape to navigate, a lot of folks, whenever they buy some of these older homes, they don't know what they're in for, and then they're surprised and their plans are delayed for years. We really need to go to the books, figure out what current ordinances are working, figure out what needs to be changed so that way we can get the bureaucracy out of homeowners' way so that way they can fill these vacant homes. And so that way we can solve our home demand issue.
Trika?
So when it comes to the houses, we need to revisit, the city needs to revisit what we're gonna do with it. We have Ramada Inn that's been sitting there. There's a contract that needs, I understand the contract didn't go well on that. But we need to be looking at places like that. That's land where houses could be put. If we would look at whether we're gonna get rid of it, we're gonna restore it, it's past the point of restoration. So we need to look at getting rid of that, leveling it out so that we can build on and put houses here for people who need it. So yes, it needs to be looked at, the red tape. Like Randy just said, people are buying these houses and they're getting in above their head. They don't understand all that's involved to restore an old house and to get it up to code. And so we need to be educating people ahead of time and helping them to be more successful when they do decide to buy these homes.
Okay. Chris?
I think a little bit of this is we need to get out of our own way. We need to look to try to figure out and work with developers, local developers that want to invest in our community and incentivize them to do so. Not give them free rides, not give them opportunities to make. We want people to make money. It's about business, and you want people to be successful, but it's also about enticing folks to come in and invest in our community to where we have some of the housing that we need that we lost from the tornado a few years ago. We still haven't replaced that, and we certainly need to. We need to solve that riddle a little bit. We need to stay laser focused and make sure that we get in front of houses that are starting to deteriorate or not being maintained, and the hotel is just, it's an eyesore that's getting worse and worse and worse, and we're not seeing any change or movement there to get that structure removed. Housing's extremely important, and affordable housing extremely important, and we're not necessarily the answer to it, but we can certainly contribute to get an answer.
Okay. Randy?
Housing is a multifaceted problem for every city, including Jefferson City. There is no one answer to the housing problems that we have. One thing I would like to look at is incentives for developers, perhaps 5-year, 10-year property tax abatement, that kind of thing. Focus on the core of the city where we have a lot of these properties that are deteriorated and older properties. Because Jefferson City, hasn't done a good job of growing, obviously from our population numbers, and so the growth has been all around us, and that's consequently where all the builders are going, to build new housing and that kind of thing. So we need some kind of a carrot to get the developers and the builders to come back into the core of the city and redevelop and rehab these properties, so that we've got more housing in the city. We've got lots of vacant lots from the tornado and that kind of thing that need to be filled in. So and then certainly also get government out of the way, remove barriers in the city code. Look at, small, tiny houses, that kind of thing, other things like that for additional housing. So.
Okay. Mackenzie?
I reached out to the Home Builders Association directly to find out what is prohibiting builders from choosing Jefferson City for their next project. And they said that the permitting process has been improving over the last several years. However, the biggest issue that they face is land available. So something that we can do as the city government is help scout locations and ask them, what would it take for you to build houses at these price points in these areas that we have scouted, and listen to the developers and try to find ways to accommodate them so that we can help solve this problem.
Okay. Virginia?
So one of the reasons that I chose to run is that somebody showed me a map of Ward 5, and Ward 5 includes the old Truman Hotel, the Ramada Inn, and I hate that thing. You come up over that hill on 54 if you're coming back up from Springfield to the lake, and you crest the hill, and over to your right you see the Capitol, and it's beautiful. And if you just barely turn your head, there is this monstrosity sitting up on the hill. And if nothing else, if I can be the drum banger for keeping after getting that project eventually taken care of, I would love it. Because that's a gigantic footprint. It could be certainly multifamily unit, maybe could be multiple houses. I'd love to see something like that there. Certainly better than what's there right now.
Okay. All right, let's go to our closing statements. All right, so we'll start with Randy.
I believe that Jefferson City is, again, the symbol of the state. And as the center of the state, we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to do what it takes to show that we are growing, we have a future. We need to look at our infrastructure, look at our resources, ensure that we start looking at a river port, start looking at a lot of big projects that are gonna bring business to this town. So that way we can bring residents here and show them that there is a future in this town and that they have a future with us too, and there's opportunities to grow as a community and as individuals. And I feel that with my experience from other communities, I can provide better guidance towards that future.
Tarika?
I would just like to say that I love Jefferson City. Jefferson City, I consider it my home. I spent 19 years in St. Louis and almost 40 here. I've spent the last 10 years, I did not wake up and say I want to serve city council. I've learned the needs of Jefferson City. I sit on different boards. I sit on the Planning and Zoning Commission here. I sit on Habitat. I sit on United Way. I sit on a daycare board. I did that intentionally and deliberately so that I could educate myself on the needs of Jefferson City. I've done that. I got it. I'm ready to run. I'm ready to push some solutions through. I'm ready to make some changes here. There got to be some changes. They're talking about people and areas and buses and should the transit. They're forgetting that there's certain population of people here that is not represented and not heard. And I want to make sure all people are heard. That's what drew me to city council, that it was nonpartisan. You didn't have to pick. I can serve and represent all people. And so in closing, that's why I'm running, and I just want people to know I'm here.
Okay. Chris?
So something that hasn't come up much tonight is the convention center. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the convention center and my support for that with the opportunity that it brings to our city and the economic development potential for generations. And but we got to dig into that and make sure that we set ourselves up to succeed, not fail. And what I mean specifically about that is operationally. We need to make sure that the hotel owner, the hotel developer has that convention center in their lane. The city doesn't need to get in that lane. We certainly don't need to invoke those expenses or be on the hook for those operational costs. I think we can build the parking garage with the funds that we have, and we can build a good sized one, and hopefully that one will have some return on investment. Biggest reason why I'm running is I think we can do better. I think we can be better, and I'm going to be committed to doing that, and certainly appreciate your all's support. Thank you.
Okay. Randy?
I'm committed to serving the citizens of Jefferson City, and I would very much like the opportunity to continue serving them. I feel like I've just gotten started, and I think we do have a good council and a good group of folks. There's an opportunity, obviously, for additional council members to come on board, which I welcome. But Jefferson City is a great place to live and work and raise a family. I want to keep focused on the basics of government, but at the same time, look to the future in growing Jefferson City. I share the same vision as Mayor Fitzwater, that we need to get to a population of 50,000 because that's a magic number for many, many reasons and many, many companies to look at Jefferson City. So we do need to have that in our sights as well for the growth of Jefferson City, and I'm committed to doing that.
Okay. Mackenzie?
As I stated whenever I opened, my commitment is to improving the quality of life for everyone who lives in Jefferson City. So I want to ensure that we are providing valuable services to the taxpayers who fund those services, and I want to make sure that everyone has input and feels that we are being good stewards of their tax dollars. So I chose to run because I am a younger adult. I am a small business owner. I chose to return here. I intend to stay here indefinitely, and I think it's a wonderful community to live, and I would like to encourage other people who may be similar to my demographic to do the same by representing us.
Okay. Virginia?
After 5 years away, living in the St. Louis suburbs, Joe and I were both given opportunities to come back to central Missouri with job opportunities. We did not have to live in Jefferson City. We chose to. I did look at possibly moving back to California, decided that wasn't the right fit. You get used to having 24-hour pharmacies and things like that when you're living in bigger spots. But I also wanted to be away from a bigger spot. I like that Jefferson City is the size that it is. I think it could grow. I think it could grow responsibly. I think we all want to have more folks coming in, and I think it's a good idea to have somebody on the council who knows what it's like to look at the city as the potential for the new place to make your home, rather than necessarily having always been here and looked at it one way. So I'd appreciate your vote.
Jack?
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. Thanks for the forum. The one thing about Ramada, we don't have any control of that. That is the housing authority. They had a bad contract there. We can't do anything at all except we had $4 or $5 million to tear it down. We don't have it. We can't do anything about it. Go talk to the housing authority. But for economic development, bringing young people in, there's an old adage that you have to dress for the job, dress for the interview. Our interview is for business to come and people to come. And we don't dress for it. We're ugly. We're broken down. As soon as you come across into town, you see streets that are cracking everywhere. A couple streets are nice. You have to really look for them. Like I said before, stormwater inlets all occluded, leaves stuck everywhere. Grass during the summertime, grass growing in all the cracks and weeds everywhere. Just a moment. We have to fix our infrastructure, and we have to get control of our budget where we fix our basics, not our needs, not our wants. Thank you.
So on behalf of the News Tribune, I would like to thank the candidates for appearing tonight and participating in this forum. I'd also like to thank again the city staff for their assistance in holding and live streaming the forum. In addition to stories about tonight and tomorrow's News Tribune, we'll have a variety of other means by which you, the voters, can become more informed about these races. We'll be asking candidates questions that we didn't get to tonight, and those answers will appear in upcoming issues of the News Tribune. Voters can still submit questions for candidates by sending us an email at vote@newstribune.com, and I would encourage you to do so. We will publish a voter's guide, the Sunday, March 17th edition, that shares more of the views of these candidates on their issues, as well as pulls together our previous coverage of this race, these races. You may currently also access our previous election coverage on our website at newstribune.com/election. As I mentioned earlier, candidates have out in the hallway their campaign literature you're free to take with you. And then lastly, I would remind us that our society is served best by an informed and active electorate. I would encourage you to take advantage of these resources and then get out and vote on April 2nd. So again, thank you for joining us tonight and have a good night.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks.